In today's session, let's talk a little bit more about the rise and fall of Jimmy Moore. As many of you know, Jimmy has recently been arrested for what's called carnal knowledge, which is legal jargon for sexual penetration of a 13-year-old girl. Now, this one hit me in a weird way because I've spent a lot of time around Jimmy, and I'm a father of a young child. My daughter's 9. So I'm very vigilant, very aware of the men that she's around of all ages, because we now know that about 30% of young children, especially young girls, are sexually assaulted or abused in some way. And that has lifelong consequences from a health standpoint, from a longevity standpoint, from a disease progression standpoint. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this book that I incidentally have been reading prior to getting this news, called The Body Keeps the Score. Really great book for anyone who just wants to better understand about the neurophysiology and neurochemistry of trauma, and how trauma and PTSD can impact and predispose people to diseases and chronic pain. So very relevant, very apropos book here. I will link that below. But let's talk about Jimmy. I never got the feeling that Jimmy would be capable or interested or the type of person that would sexually assault a 13-year-old girl. And as I mentioned, we don't know all the backstory here, but I'll just share with you this image from the Henrico County Sheriff's Office, where Jimmy is booked with 7 counts of carnal knowledge, which is, again, legal jargon for sexual penetration. He has no bail here, no bail posted. So again, we don't know all the details. This is one thing that I think we all need to be mindful of. We don't know the whole story. However, no bail, 7 counts. There's been some communication with personal friends that I know of the family that have vetted that this has been going on since 2019. So it's been going on for a while. But, I think point number 1, as a parent, you need to be very mindful, especially, if you have young girls, young daughters, because there's men out there that do weird things, obviously, and we would never suspect it, like in the case of Bill Cosby. In the case here of Jimmy Moore, a very accomplished health entrepreneur. He's written many books, very productive in his career. Keto Clarity here on Amazon has 2,700 reviews. It's been a best-selling book all about the ketogenic diet. The Complete Guide to Fasting that he co-authored with Jason Fung has over 15,000 reviews. So here you have this accomplished individual, and use possibly that authority to unfortunately become close to a young girl, which is just unfortunate, especially for her and her life and the trauma that she has to go through and the work that she's going to have to go through with her future relationships and health issues and mental health. I mean, it's just really sad all around. The second point that I want to mention here that I think is important for us as parents, as people, as we embark on new business ventures or new intimate relationships, is trusting your gut. There's some people that have said, I never really trusted Jimmy. Of course, I didn't. I trusted him. I thought he was a really outgoing, gregarious guy. We went on his cruise, had ice cream with my daughter with him and things like that. But some people noticed, something was a little, he gave me a vibe that was a little weird. Okay. I think we should trust that weirdness. And I want to share with you a story here. If you ever are around someone and you notice something's a little off, something doesn't seem right, dig into that and trust your gut. Your gut is really guiding you when it comes to interpersonal relationships. There's a lot of research on this, but oftentimes we ignore that and we don't look at these red flags. And I just want to share this story with you. Our house got broken into and a bunch of things got stolen, and we highly suspect it was someone that we know. The long story short here is I had this individual that I met on this app, Dolly, which is it's an app that you can hire short-term labor. So this individual had a clean car. He was on time. I got to know him. We did a lot of work together, landscape, moving stuff, digging holes, building fences, all this, and putting in doors, construction. Really got to know this individual. And one day we go to the gym, my wife and I and daughter, on a Saturday. We come back, and Deanna has to get something before we go to the farmer's market. And as she enters the house, she just opens the door and she said, "Someone has been in this house." And I'm like, "Okay, why do you think that, Deanna?" She's like, things seem rearranged." I'm like, "Well, what seems rearranged? I mean, our house is kind of cluttery." I'm like, "Well," she's like, "This bag wasn't here; it was over there." I'm like, "Come on, here I am being dismissive of her feelings, and I'm telling you to trust your intuition, right?" But it was an aha moment in the sense that she knew that someone was in the house, and we just got her purse, and then we left. Then we came back, and she was like, "Okay, I'm going to do a little computer work on my computer. I have to do some charting with patients and things like that." And she's like, "My computer's gone." And I thought, well, let's just look in the car. Let's look around the house. It turns out her computer bag was gone. It turns out her rings were gone. All these things were missing. And I'm like, that's super strange. I'm like, then I go in my shed, in the back where I keep all my tools, my chainsaw, the weed whacker, shovels, axes, all these things are gone. Now, I suspect that it was this individual who there was a few sort of inconsistencies in his behavior, but for the most part, I didn't get a lot of red flags about theft and things of the sort. However, before we went to the gym, he was going to come over and do some work for me. But that day, then he's like, oh, I can't. Last minute, he canceled 10 minutes before, which I thought was really weird, unlike him. So we go to the gym and we suspect that when he saw us leave, he came with his friends and did a smash and grab and grabbed a bunch of stuff. And I never heard from him again. I tried to text him and he didn't get back to me, which again was really unusual. So the point is here, ever since then, when my daughter, my wife, anyone says that they feel something is off or they suspect something is weird, instead of brushing it off and thinking you're just being overly sensitive or reactive, I ask further questions. Why? Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel that way about this person? And in myself, when I meet someone and I sense something, it's a little awry or their energy's off or they look a certain way or something like that, I dig into that instead of just brushing it off as like, oh, I'm being overly critical or whatever, because we're energetic beings and we can pick up on this stuff. And some people are just more in tune to it than others. And so this is why, and I have many instances of this, but going forward, especially after this, again, with someone that I would never have suspected would be capable or even interested in causing harm to a young child. It's inexcusable to touch a young girl in that way, totally inexcusable behavior. I would have never suspected that. So going forward as a father, I'm going to be way more vigilant about who I let my daughter hang around with, about what sleepovers or people or caretakers she's around. Just because someone is a doctor or an author doesn't mean that it's just like, oh yeah, go and stay at their house. We'll see you tomorrow. It's like, you need to really go feel them out, look them in the eyes, trust your gut. Like if something seems off, if something feels off or doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. So those are my sort of messages here. Definitely check out this book, The Body Keeps a Score. Really great read about the neurophysiology of trauma, how trauma can impact hormones, behavior, pain, and pain perception, and all that. And it seems that hurt people. And I'm not giving Jimmy excuses for sexually assaulting a young girl, 13-year-old, but he has spoken about the fact that he's been abused himself. And breaking that cycle within families, within communities of abuse, is something that we all should be aware of. So breath work, meditation, working with a counselor. There's all sorts of different tools that are completely outside the scope of my knowledge base, but I know can be helpful for people. So if you know someone who's had traumatic trauma, rape, abuse onto themselves, tell them, help them do the work and not self-medicate with alcohol and screens and porn or things like that. Like, do the inner work, do the breath work, do the mindset work, talk with people, consider microdosing. These things can be very helpful, my friend. So again, this one caught me off guard, very surprising, very disappointing, and made me want to really have my head on a swivel with regards to the men that are around my young daughter and women in my life. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this book? If you've read it, The Body Keeps a Score, I'll be following your comments below. If you got some value out of this video, let me know. Hit that like button. Have an awesome rest of your day.